Need for Speed is redundant. Well, maybe not quite that far, but there's some problems we need to discuss about the future of the series. Need for Speed's issue is that it has been thrown around to tons of developers over the years, meaning that it has an identity crisis worse than a 13-year-old trying to start a YouTube channel for the first time. When you look at the series' roots, it was all for a lust of supercars and speed. The first entry was more grounded with sports cars, but by the second entry we had McLaren and Ferrari showing off their cars. The initial design was to be a love letter to cars and the driving experience. Though, as we all know, that took a turn once we hit the early 2000s. Then came the Black Box era, with modified 4-bangers, NOS kits and a new sales record. Without even going further into the series, we start to see a problem. On one hand, you have these supercars racing on country roads, and on the other side, you have these tuners racing on the city streets. So let's get real and look at the modern day. Need for Speed Heat was the newest entry in the franchise, so long as you don't count the re-release of their old 2010 Hot Pursuit. In this modern gaming environment, we already have a massive mixture of racing games that can pull off exactly what Need for Speed has done over its how many year lifespan. But on the other hand, EA is one of the biggest gaming companies there is, meaning that they won't want to take a risk on a game that might potentially backfire and not have enough sales. So we need to see what the competitors are and then figure out what Need for Speed can do to have its own niche that will work. So to cover the first Need for Speed games, the love letter to cars is something Gran Turismo has been doing for years. Just boot up any of their series and you will find a love for cars in the same way, with the history behind said companies. If you want to look, on the other hand, at the car culture, you don't need to look any further than Forza Horizon 4. That game manages to straddle all of the car culture you could ever want, with supercars, muscle cars, and all the tuners with appropriate body kits in the newest release. This leaves us with the arcade Need for Speeds, like Hot Pursuit 2010. The competition that Need for Speed have there is most likely to be the Crew 2, which already has a how many year head start, along with consistent updates even now. So where does that leave Need for Speed in the market? What gap have they got? Let's look at Warzone. I know it's a bit out of left field, but this game is the perfect example. If Need for Speed wants to succeed, it needs to do what it has done before, and that is to create a free-to-play that everyone can access and have a AAA experience without having to pay a dime unless they want some extra stuff. Like I say, it's not the first time. There was originally Need for Speed World, which that game used Speed Boost as the paid currency, which did make EA a decent amount, but most of the cars were still accessible to the average player, and even now the game's still online thanks to some people who have managed to recreate servers themselves and make it a totally free-to-play experience. Even now there is still a free-to-play supported Need for Speed, but it's for the mobile platforms, Need for Speed No Limits. Let's not talk about that one much. That is exactly where Need for Speed needs to go. A free-to-play game would give everybody the access to a racing game that otherwise most people wouldn't really touch. We've got to remember, racing games are a niche genre. They're not like shooters, which had a popularity boom. And the only competitive racing scenes really nowadays are in the esports side and sim racing communities, which, once again, you have to have such a high skill level, which means that those who casually want to just sit back and drive don't stand a chance. So having this open place for people to drive, in the same vein as Test Drive Unlimited, or once again Need for Speed World, it would mean, quite literally, the world to those who do love cars. So I think the real conclusion to this is that Need for Speed just hasn't been the same for a long time. And the only reason people like us make these videos is because we genuinely want a good game to play. So please, EA, make us something good. Really, that's the best outro I could come up with. Hopefully it'll get better.